everyone. I'm Hazem. I'm a PM, one of the part of the infrastructure and quality group, and this is part of the Power Apps Studio team. I'm relatively new. This is, I think, my 4th month in the team, but I'm quite excited about what we're doing and also sharing many of the tools that we are working on and features to the rest of the community. Today, I'm going to be talking about Monitor, and traditionally, makers and developers used to use tools like Fiddler, Chrome DevTools, and other tools to just like troubleshoot their apps while they're building them, trying to figure out what's wrong, what's not working, and how to optimize things. And it did actually and still work, but it was a little bit of overhead to use those tools, especially when you try to integrate them with Power Studio and try to actually filter and figure out what exactly is happening. And this is when we introduced Monitor back in around October 2019. And since then, it has gone into general availability back in December 2020. And what Monitor does is mainly it is a troubleshooting and diagnostic tool that is native to the Power App Studio. And makers can use that tool mainly to view real-time events streaming while they're both either in studio editing and designing their apps, or actually to troubleshoot and view the events and behavior of published apps. So the typical use case and most common use case for Monitor is to mainly troubleshoot an app or a solution that has something wrong, or you think that, okay, there is actually some room for optimization and improving the performance of an app, for example. But I also find it very useful and important to actually use it to understand how your app is behaving. And the interesting part that I came across this scenario actually yesterday when I was trying to pull my demo app, and I found out that my entire environment has been wiped out. So I actually had to look for a new app to just use it for today's demo. And I came across this app that we previously used in a different context, but I wasn't actually quite like sure, okay, what are the different elements? And then I thought, oh, okay, this is actually, I can use Monitor to figure out what's going on with this app, and I'll go through this in a minute. So it is definitely useful to just like navigate through the expressions, events, network events, figuring out the dependencies and the flow of the general app. So the way that the Monitor tool is actually architected is that it receives and acts as a hub for all the events throughout user session or an app session. And this way, we actually receive all the events in the case of Canvas app or model apps that, or most of the events that are actually being transmitted throughout the session. And examples include things like going through the data connectors, user actions like clicks, calls like through the network, and delegation calls in case of the model-driven apps, forms, and form load sequence, and so on. And this is actually where we would love to get your feedback as well in terms of like what are some of the different events that would make sense and like many of the makers are still looking at. So typically we try to include as many as we can in terms of events, but we're also trying to keep the balance between just adding lots of noise and or trying to avoid to make it an overwhelming experience when you start looking into the sequence of events and reaching that balance of, okay, I can actually get some useful, informative data by looking into monitoring events versus, oh, I'm getting lots of events, I don't know what's going on. The other thing that actually the framework, as I mentioned, is extendable in a way that there is some thinking to just extend this beyond Power Apps, and that could be for things like PVA, Power Virtual Agents, and Power Automate as well, in terms of using the same tool to actually troubleshoot flows and chatbots. So one of the new features when we did the GA last year was to actually a couple of features that we introduced to enable collaborative debugging. And the scenarios mainly are addressed for tech support teams, but also it includes just like regular makers who would like to actually get a hand or support and help from different team members or more experienced makers in their organization. So the first feature is called the invite. And the typical scenario for this feature is if, let's say that I'm actually going through a troubleshooting session and I'm just like using Monitor, I launched my app and then I'm going through a sequence of events, but I'm still unable to just like figure out what's really going on or what's wrong or what could be potentially optimized. And I need a hand or help from someone, as I mentioned, in my organization. And instead of just like throwing a dump of all the events, I can actually establish a real-time collaboration session by using the invite feature. And I'll show this in a minute in the demo, and share that link. And for the new maker or team member, once he or she receives that link, they would actually establish a real-time session where they can start seeing the same exact monitor session real-time, so that you can actually collaborate with someone else to troubleshoot your application. So this is mainly the invite. The connect user scenario is where, let's say that you're, again, a support team member and you get this bug reported about a specific set of problems or events that happen after a certain sequence, and you receive this trouble ticket where there's a description of how to regenerate that issue or bug, and then you go through those steps and events and you're actually not able to just create the same problem. So typically you would just like either reply back and saying, hey, I need more details, it's not working, or you just like call that person. So what this feature is offering is to actually the ability again to do a real-time troubleshooting session. So in that scenario, you would just like, if let's say that you are the support person, you would just like create a connect user link and send it to the issue creator and ask him or her to run the app. So they would be running the app and you would be actually in real time monitoring the session and figuring out what's going on without you necessarily having to actually generate the steps or recreate the steps. The original issue creator would just like be running through his or her app and you would be able to see what's going on in the session. And again, I'll run through this in the demo to just like make it a little bit more clear about the difference between the two scenarios and how do they work. So there are certain limitations today to monitor, and we are working on addressing most of, if not all of those scenarios. But today, for instance, you cannot actually establish or troubleshoot a monitor session through the mobile player. And also scenarios like the embedded or custom pages where you actually can go in a model-driven app and create a Canvas app or embedded app. This is another scenario that is not supported. SharePoint custom forms is also not supported, and Teams is not supported. But we do have all of these items or those items actually in our roadmap, and we're working towards a plan to actually cover them in probably throughout this year. Okay, so I'll run through the demo.
That's great to hear that all the current limitations on the monitor are already in your backlog.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody's really keen to see the one with Teams integration.
Yeah, that would definitely be of great value as well. So this is the app that and this is available online. I'll provide the link to that solution package that you can actually download, but it's like part of the Northwind Trader package that provides demos and examples for many aspects of studio design expressions and so on. And this is definitely not meant to be just like a reference or a model for how to write an app, and it is definitely not optimized, and there are tons of things that are going there. But as I mentioned earlier, I was just like coming through this app and was trying to remember what's going on, how is it working. And in this scenario, I just like show you, okay, how to even start looking into what's going on and what's happening in the sequence of events here. So what this app does, it mainly does upload a set of data from a CDS, like Dataverse entities or tables, and then you can actually see how in a sequential manner. The data gets uploaded, it takes a little bit of time, and then you can actually remove it and you go through the sequence. And my kind of like instinct when I saw this, I was like, okay, everything must be actually here in the upload. And I saw this expression and formula, and then I thought, okay, this is actually not happening. There must be something else somewhere. And the easy way to just like do this is to start a monitor session. So actually I have one already running here, but let me kill this one. So in case that you haven't actually seen monitor before, I'll briefly go through this, but this is in running monitor in the editing mode. So you just go to advanced tool and then you find the monitor tool, you open it, and then you have a new tab that actually is connected to that session. So you just hit play, and I'm just running load data here. And then you start seeing all the different events and operations and relevant controls. So you can notice immediately that there is actually a control that is dominating and has lots of events being emitted that is called timer 1. And that the property that is actually being hit is called on timer end. And what's even, I think, more convenient, that you can actually start seeing the formula that is being executed as part of that event. And then you start realizing that, oh, this is actually, there is much more than the load button that is happening. And some of the cool features is like you can actually filter on any of those events. So you can actually just say, okay, would like to see only warnings. And then just like say, okay, I have a few warnings here. It's about delegation, and you can even see which line in the expression this warning is about. So this is mainly about the count row. Let me expand this a little bit more. And the fact that you're actually doing a non-delegated call to CDS, and that actually might create some problems depending on your data size and the number of records that you're trying to retrieve, and also the settings in your app. But again, this is kind of a quick overview of like if you're landing in a completely new app, you would like to figure out what's really going on and what's the sequence of events. And then as we go here, just like we go to tree view, we find out that actually there is a timer, and on timer end, there is the expression that was actually shown in here. And this is a monstrous expression that I would not recommend use as a reference, but it was being done intentionally in the context of this app. So now let's say that the other, I think, cool thing that you can do even is to write custom traces that you can actually view. So if you would like to capture and dump specific data in a monitor session, you can do that. And the way that I did this here is by just like, again, creating another timer, and I placed in here a trace. So you can actually use the trace to post a specific custom message in your monitor session and set a severity, and you can even include a custom record. And this is more also like the trace function could be extended to App Insights integration. This is an Azure service. So let's say that you are interested in capturing more data, storing it in Azure so that you can actually have some telemetry generated there. You can use this function, but to the extent of this expression, this is going to appear in our monitor session. So now I remove the comment here, and I'll just run this again, and you'll see in a second. So let's filter by timer 2. So you start seeing actually here the message coming out saying timer trace. And this is the control is timer 2. And this is again a way to just have a custom trace in your monitor session. And this is of course something that you can place anywhere. I am just like for simplicity created a separate timer in here, but it's it could be done inside of any of those controls, inside of any of the events or triggers. So let's say that while I'm actually doing this session, as I mentioned earlier, and let's just remove this filter, I would like to get a hand and someone to help me. So I can click on this invite. And this is limited to the same organization. Let me just kill this session. Link is thrown out.
I really like how you can use the monitor to reverse engineer the code like you did there. When you pick up a new app you never worked with before and you can run it and literally see where all the code calls are being made from. That's so handy. In addition to just inspecting traffic too. Are you also going to show the response and request tabs in the monitor?
Yes, in the HTTP request, I'll show that in a second. I was trying to show the invite and
yeah, no problem.
Thank you for mentioning that. So yeah, let's start again a monitor session and just play. Here is the invite. So I'm inviting another user. This is actually the link for that session. Just like, let me start set of events here. And I'll show another screen where another tab in here. So I just like gonna paste the link that I got. And this is the second person receiving this session that he or she is gonna be providing help to the first user. And there is a little bit of lag, but as you can see, the other person can start actually seeing the data and just like, I think this is a browser thing. So this is actually a second user. You see here, there is a different user in here, but now you're seeing the same exact events at the session. And it's just like going back to Todd's point about seeing the response and request. So you can actually drill down into the details. I'll just use probably a better example here. By the way, what you're seeing here is I'm just like using 3 screens. So this is the refresh of my screen is not working well, refresh rate, but let me actually use some event from here. So in addition to the formula, you can actually see the exact request that has been submitted through the network and the response that you got back and the status of each of those responses. And you can actually even drill further to the content of the body, the header, and seeing all the headers and the request being sent. So it definitely provides you with this capability to just like drill down if you're interested in capturing more details, even in some cases beyond what Fiddler is offering, or just like sticking to just the sequence and figuring out, okay, what part of the expression was that trying to get executing and what happened and how things could be optimized.
I think they really go hand in hand really well. I love the request response part you have in Monitor here, especially when you're in a scenario when you're dialing in like a custom connector to a net new API, or maybe you're calling into an Azure function, or trying to get auth set up right. Looking at the request, the response, and the headers gives you all the clues you need to figure out if it's not working right, what you need to change.
Exactly.
And you don't have to go fiddling through Fiddler or the dev tools anymore to sift down and locate just the query, the network traffic that has that. You guys filter it all out here, which makes it so great.
Right.
I have not used that share the feature monitor with somebody before. That looks absolutely outstanding, and I bet help desks around the world want to buy you a beer for that one.
I wouldn't mind, for sure. Yeah, let me just walk you quickly through the last scenario, and this is the connect user to just like show the difference. And you can think again more of the published version of the app. So I'll just close this for now in here, but think of trying to troubleshoot, as I mentioned, an issue that was reported and you're not able to actually regenerate that exact issue. So you just like would run monitor from here, and the connect user can only be applied and applicable for published version. So if you are inside the studio, you won't be seeing this feature. You just have to actually use a published version in order to enable that feature or use it. So this is where you start seeing the connect user. And similar to the invite, you just say, hey, connect user, choose someone in your organization, and then get a link. I'm not sure why today. I'm using private sessions, and this is the reason that the cookies are not stored, and then I have to refresh every time. And I'm using private sessions to just like differentiate between the two windows that I have. But let's give this a try again. So I'm gonna use this, and this is the created link again for the connect user. And I'm gonna be creating a new session here. So again, this is another window, just pasting the link here.
And just like before, you get to view while they're interacting with it.
No, so this time, I'm now the original issue creator. So I'm the user who reported the issue. I'll be receiving this link to just join, and I'll be seeing the same app. And now, let's say on Teams channel or somewhere, the support person or dev is asking me to go through the sequence of events that generated that problem. So if let's say that, hey, I get an error when I actually press remove and do cancel, I'll be walking through the sequence, and the troubleshooting person, the support person, will be able to see what's going on in here. And this way, you don't actually have to just, again, as I mentioned, like keep writing steps and going back and forth around the different scenarios about what's going on.
Yeah, and telling people how to replicate the error.
Exactly, yeah.
Just show them.
Yeah, so this is, again, a very brief, quick overview of the two connect and invite features that could be used in here, as well as the custom traces that could be generated in case that there is actually a need to just like capture specific parameters or values inside your app. Now, going back to the slides, in terms of like future capabilities and things that we've been working on, probably as you've noticed, you're able to see the events, controls, and so on. But when it comes to variables and being able to just like getting closer to what some of the top features of a full debugger are around, like seeing the values of variables, seeing the values of collections, being able to actually put trace points or breakpoints to some extent to just like get updates and be able to easily trace those changes in the values. This is something that we are working on. And today there is this kind of, I think, hidden capability inside the advanced feature where you can just like go and actually see collections and variables, but it's very limited and it's not like real-time dynamic. So one of the things that we're working on is to actually take that capability, expand it, and merge it as part of Monitor so that we can also enhance this troubleshooting and kind of variables and collection inspection capability as part of Monitor. So those are some of the example features that we're working on now, and we would also love to hear back from the community about any of the other major pain points or features that they are looking for to add and include in Monitor.
Absolutely. I'm sure if anybody has a suggestion, they're going to get that into the chat right away for you. This is a great capability and great demo, and it does so much more than people might think, right? It's more than debugging. It can help you understand an app and how it works and troubleshoot it and all kinds of great things. Thanks for coming on today and walking us through this great feature.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for
You're welcome. Yeah. Come back when you've got these new things built. We'd love to see them too.